All right, guys, we're going to get into some basketball, but first, just wishing me and Leone happy haircut day. We both won seats in the NBA finals on DraftKings after buzzing our heads. So if you're having struggles out there, you're not winning.
You're already NBA focused when it's the NFL finals, buddy. You didn't win a cue to the NBA finals just yet.
Oh God, you know what? We were doing the Wake and Rake show yesterday, and or maybe it was on the Friday show, and I was calling Logan Thomas Lance Thomas. Man,
I do that all the time.
Fringe NBA players already melting my brain, which I'm sure it's when we're in overlap here, it's gonna be rough. But yeah, if you're on a cold streak in DFS in football, just buzz your head. Good things will come your way. But man, it's NBA time, boys. Preseason started over the weekend. I did not play yet. I'm going to play tonight. We are going to have a top plays article. We are going to have a stream. We're getting into the swing of things. We weren't planning on doing preseason, but this is a bonus to all of our loyal subscribers. And all you need is a draft kit. If you have the in-season, well, you already have the draft kit as well because it comes with the in-season package for free. But either of those will get you access to our preseason content. We are going to do content tonight and then 2 more times this week, Drew. When else are we doing it?
Yeah, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday is going to be our preseason content schedule, and content only for the preseason. We'll have projections and everything for the regular season, but we're not going to have projections up on the site this week. There's some issues with preseason projections in terms of random camp bodies that you have to build baselines for and display issues. So those won't be available, but we will have a top plays article and we will have a show Monday today as we're recording, Wednesday and Thursday this week.
Yes, excellent. I'm looking forward to watching some hoops. I didn't get a chance to watch any over the weekend, so we're gonna be leaning on Gallagher because he watched probably every single game twice, just for posterity. All right, Gallagher, how you doing? You surviving NBA being back in full swing?
Doing pretty good. Love it. My screen time's way up from Apple, so back in the NBA life, loving it. And yeah, loving preseason. No summer league, so we got to pass some judgments on some guys and seeing how fast they are at the NBA level. It's really cool.
Yeah, what a life. We're tweeting a 13-hour screen time screenshot. Actually, is a good marketing ploy. We did get at least one subscriber from your tweet, which, you know what? It's true. If you're spending that much time grinding the NBA, that's how we know you're the best. That's why we got you on the team, because you truly are the best. Drew, you're pretty darn good yourself. How'd the weekend treat you?
I got my butt kicked in NFL DFS. Didn't play enough Taylor Horton-Tucker, and didn't recognize that the Lakers are apparently running finals rotations in the preseason while everybody else is running preseason rotations. So the first go at preseason was a little choppy for me, but after having information from those first games to be able to evaluate a lot of the teams playing tonight are teams that played on Saturday already. And I'm listening to the broadcast now to get a feel for minutes expectations and scouting the news along with Mike. So, just oscillating between NFL and NBA and trying not to have the mind meld too quickly as we finish out the NFL season and look forward to getting fully focused on NBA all the time.
Absolutely. So we're going to get into the top 50 change logs so far, some of the movers and shakers in Gallagher's top 150. But before we get into that, Gallagher, why don't you bring us up to speed on what you saw this weekend in the preseason stuff? Anything that stood out? Just the most important takeaways.
Yeah, so I think we got to start at the top. That's probably Kevin Durant. I thought it looked pretty good. Talk of him being more of a ball handler, playing 1 through 5, playing near the rim on defense. I mean, I really liked what I saw. His stats weren't great, but how they were using him was really encouraging to me. All the Kyrie Instagram stuff's going to get all the pub, but his usage looked really good to me. I thought that was probably the headline. Other than that, obviously Taylor Horton-Tucker is going to get all the buzz in the world with how well he played. And I thought Isaac Okoro was probably, for me, he was really the biggest riser because I thought he was really quick. I thought he had an offensive game, which I didn't really know he had. And he's playing a 2-guard when he's supposed to be a 3 or a 4. So young guys playing three positions is right up my alley on a bad team.
All right, well, hold on. Let's back up a little bit. Most people have been in NFL mode.
My bad. No.
Who's Isaac Okoro? What team is he on? What position does he play?
Sorry about that. Yeah, he's on the Cavs. He was their first round pick, and it looks like he's already going to be ahead of Kevin Porter Jr., who's hurt. Colin Sexton's a little hurt. He'll play. He hasn't missed a game yet. But yeah, Auburn guy, really, really versatile guy. So love it.
So he was, let's see, he's 6'6", 225 pounds, 19 years old, so a youngin. And what pick did the Cavs have him?
Fifth.
Fifth overall.
He went right after Patrick Williams. Those two were somewhat similarly regarded in terms of the prospect circles, in terms of kind of what they do as wing oriented defensive players. Williams a little bit more up the positional spectrum, a little bit more solidly of a 3-4, whereas Okoro is showing that versatility to be able to play the two a little bit as well.
Okay. So, I mean, he should have a pretty clear path to playing a decent amount of minutes. Drew, do you know off the top of your head how many minutes we have him projected for season-long stuff?
So for the season-long stuff, I will get that up right. I have that spreadsheet right in front of me. We've got him projected for, 26 minutes a night. He played 33 minutes in the opener. I think the question about him from a fantasy perspective is what kind of expectation can we see on the rates? I had him kind of pegged as an OG Anunoby type, lower rates, good steals, blocks, good defender, but kind of a guy that is a little bit more valuable in category-based leagues than, say, points leagues or DFS and different things like that. And we'll just have to see. It's not like when you think of Cleveland, you don't think there's a lot of mouths to feed there, because there's not a lot of, high-end NBA talent. But the talent that they do have is ball dominant. And Colin Sexton, Darius Garland, even, Kevin Love and Andre Drummond are pretty solid usage players in that starting lineup. So if he does crack the starting lineup, I would expect a pretty modest role in terms of usage and opportunities. But the question mark is from a fantasy perspective, will he be impactful enough defensively? Because I think the minutes will be there.
Yeah, I think he pretty much iced Jetty Osman, or as I joked on Slack, Jetty Osman got jettisoned out of the starting lineup. So yeah, he's a guy I just bumped up just because I always say young players, bad teams is how you want to end your drafts.
Fair enough. All right. Now we know who Okoro is. What else did you see this weekend, Gallagher?
What do you Kevin Durant, I guess. We talked about him briefly, but do you want to talk about him more in depth? Or I kind of covered it. Yeah, just as I mentioned, just on ball, bringing the ball up, defensive position. I think he's in a big spot. I think he's going to have a huge season.
So did you move him up in the top 150?
I did not yet. No, I didn't yet. I thought I was pretty high on him to begin with, but didn't move him up yet. But yeah, you should feel really good. Well, let me say this too. So I found out in the 30-team league, I'm picking 9th. And I'm considering him there because you really got to make sure your first-round guy is a monster. So if I'm sitting there at 9 and I'm looking at him or Trey, I might go Durant at 9. I think he deserves a first-round pick at this point. It's tough to move him over Booker, but you could move him over whoever, really. I mean, he's so good.
Yeah, you've got him listed 12th right now in the top 50, so look for him to move up there, maybe ahead of a man that we discussed in the potential shy aways, Mr. Stephen Curry, who had a pretty tempered first game, but I don't think he played very many minutes. Didn't shoot
particularly well. Actually, to add to Steph really quick, he had a good comment. He's saying that he wasn't how long it would take him to get used to shooting with the new guys around him. He was asked a really good question. I don't know who asked that one, but he gave a really good answer, saying he's not quite, because he wasn't really the off-ball using his teammates as well as he was. It's one game, but I thought that was an interesting question.
All right. What else did you see this weekend?
What else? Want to go just kind of Friday and go on?
Sure.
All right. So Friday, let's talk. I guess let's talk LaMelo instead. I thought that the Hornets were probably really fun. Just LaMelo is so fun. He does a lot of fancy passing. He's going to shoot the ball really poorly. He pulled up like 30 feet out, so he has all the confidence in the world. And in that game, OG Anunoby, total confirmation bias, but sign me up, man. I think he's going to look really good. But PJ Tucker did play the 5. That's another good sign from that game, too. There's a lot to take away from this one.
All right. What about on Saturday?
Okay, there's so much time. Drew, do you have any takes on LaMelo yet? Do you watch them yet?
Yeah, I watched a decent bit of that game. I would say good confirmation bias on OG. The opposite is the way I felt about Norm. got an opportunity to play, point guard in place of Lowry, and was off the ball still a ton. Wasn't on the ball as much as he is kind of when he's normally leading the second unit. And then the big surprise to us was also Terrence Davis playing. And there was, unknown and uncertainty around kind of Terrence Davis's off the court situation. We had him out of the projections because we just didn't know if it was going to be a situation where the team might cut him based on some of the reports and some of the things but if they're playing him in preseason, I got to assume that they plan on having him during the course of the season because those are valuable minutes they can give to other guys. And so I think that deepens Toronto a little bit more than what we were expecting before. I thought Matt Thomas looked really good in that game. He's going to carve out a role, not going to be season long or DFS worthy outside of like an occasional spot start maybe. But LaMelo I thought looked good. I thought, all the things that the Ball brothers do in terms of, push tempo and they just do a lot of little things with like hit ahead passes. He had a nice like tip rebound directly to somebody that had a better path to be on the move and going in transition. And the Ball brothers just do a lot of little stuff like that. So pretty encouraged. Obviously, his size is going to make it so that he's a pretty good rebounder. The question with LaMelo will just come down to the shooting and the turnovers, which I think are a concern for category-based leagues. And I would say similarly, while talking LaMelo, we can talk about Killian Hayes as well. Similar thing with Killian, where the first few games, we're very excited about Killian's role and opportunity. And I think it's very clear that that's there. They are putting the ball in his hands a ton. But the concern is for a category-based league, not points-based leagues. I think points-based leagues he'll be fine, but category-based leagues, the field goal percentage and the turnovers are a concern, certainly, because the game is moving awfully fast for him in the first few games. Shot 2 for 11 in the second game, turned the ball over 7 or 8 times in the first game. So I think it's going to take some time for these guys. And again, remember with the rookies, the absence of summer league, the absence of kind of being able to acclimate. I think for ball dominant players, there's going to be more of a learning curve. For bigs, for guys that play off the ball and just kind of spot up and shoot, I don't think the learning curve will be as steep. But for guys who have the ball in their hands a lot, like LaMelo, like Killian, I think there's going to be a learning curve. I think they're going to be much stronger second half players. So, if you're in an active league where you trade a lot and different things like that, they might be guys that you might not want to draft necessarily at their current price points and then just wait in the season, because I think you'll get some buy low opportunities based on some struggles early.
Let's stick with rookies, actually. So, want to stick with rookies for a bit?
Yeah,
sure.
So, Obi Toppin, I thought he had a good first game, but oh boy, he had a really bad game yesterday. I thought, especially defensively, Sekou Doumbouya went off. There were like 5 back cuts on him and Randall. So, I don't think they could play together, Obi and Randall. Their defense is so bad. It's just they haven't played together yet, so that's a factor too. But Doumbouya's shot selection was just total cakewalk, easy dunks, easy buckets all night for him to get 23. So it was crazy because Toppin was like the in shape guy of the team, and he looked out of shape quick in just a second NBA preseason game after he looked okay in the first one.
I thought he kind of had shades. I don't know if this comparison's been made, but I hadn't seen him till I saw the highlights, and he kind of looked a little bit like Amari out there, just like spinning around, getting into the
comp. That's the comp. Yeah. That's the high end comp of like the best case scenario for Obi is that he is just such a good offensive player in the pick and roll, and his ability to kind of stretch out and shoot a little bit that it overwhelms the defensive lapses and the defensive just lack of kind of natural gifts on that end of the floor. The challenge is obviously the league is in a different place than what it was when Amari was doing his thing in terms of floor spacing and different things like that. And defensively, he just can't hold as a 5. So those are the concerns around Toppin, but offensively, very polished in the pick and roll, and can stretch it out and shoot a little bit, and really athletic dude in terms of, some monster hammer dunks and whatnot.
Yeah, he's a little bit older too. He's already 22 years old.
Yeah.
So that's I suppose a bit of a red flag as well. But he looked pretty good from what I saw.
Yeah, I thought another guy who really impressed was Theo Maledon.
The OKC dudes, man. The OKC dudes looked good.
Yeah, I didn't know. I thought he was just like a long defender, kind of low usage facilitator guy, but he could score in a lot of different ways. So, my guy Frank Jackson might be on hot water. They kind of like, I think that Maledon might. So I kind of changed their depth chart to where George Hill's the shooting guard because him and SG had such overlap. Obviously, he missed it. Baisley, Horford, and a bunch of other guys didn't play. But I thought Maladon has an inside track to get even a rotation spot already, which is really surprising. I didn't think that was going to happen. So he's a guy that really just jumped onto the deep league radar to me. Keep going.
Well, I'm waiting for you to talk Pokusevski. If we're talking
okay,
Maladon, we got to talk Pokusevski,
yeah,
right?
Go ahead.
Like,
you take Poko. Yeah, you take him.
I mean, I thought, we got a really good opportunity to see a lot of these young guys from Oklahoma City. I've had some concerns about how they'll be able to handle things offensively just as a whole, because it's such an inexperienced team. But they played very fast, which they're going to need to do to create easier buckets for themselves. And I thought Poku looked pretty comfortable. Especially for, the concern being like, will he be able to acclimate kind of right away? Will he need developmental time and different things like that? But I thought, the Thunder just have so many picks upcoming in the next few years. And Maladon and Pokusevski looked like guys when they selected them at the time that might be more developmental. And they looked a little bit further ahead than I anticipated, honestly. So, for deep leaguers out there, for midseason pickups and kind of normal leagues and stuff, keep an eye on these guys. The depth chart's obviously going to be totally different when Baisley and Horford and these guys are playing, and Lou Dort that they didn't have playing in that first preseason game. But I think these guys have a chance to make late season impacts.
And then another guy who I thought looked really good in his second game after he mentioned he was nervous is Tyrese Halliburton, Dick Cheney special. More on ball time. He had a lot of really overlap with, he was on ball a lot more in the second game. So yeah, really ahead of the curve. We thought it may take a couple months to get going, and yeah, just totally vaulted up in the second game. So I know we really like Halliburton, and we said before that Bogdan probably went because they think Halliburton can do some damage early.
Yeah, and he had a super well-rounded stat line. He had a little bit of everything. Had a steal, block, I believe, like 10 points, 6 rebounds type of thing, like 6 assists, something in that ballpark. Is that kind of what we're expecting from him? Just contributing a little bit across the board, not a big scorer?
Yep, exactly. A little bit of assists. He's going to get some time. Corey Joseph isn't a ball-dominant point guard either, so, and it sounds like that's what they're going to play it. So a lot of opportunity here. We know De'Aaron Fox doesn't play huge minutes. So, yeah, I mean, getting, 13, 14 minutes away from him could be really useful.
Yeah, and just, a note on all these games, it's really important to not overreact too much, because a lot of these guys, they're not going to get the minutes they're getting right now. They're not going to be playing, when they are playing, it'll probably be against better competition. So don't overreact too much. Like Taylor Horton, Tucker is probably the prime example where he just went absolutely off. And now that we know that he has that in him, and he'll probably be a good DFS plug at some point, but like how many minutes is he going to play on a given night? Maybe like 10 to 12 minutes probably when everybody's healthy.
I think he can earn into the 14 to 16 range when everybody's healthy. But yeah, if, from a seasonal standpoint, that's not gonna be enough. You're gonna need to like plug and play him if you're in like daily transaction leagues and different things like that, when LeBron and AD are resting.
He needs to crush Wesley Matthews, I think, for him to really get minutes. Just to put a bow on the rookies, not really a rookie in the traditional sense. He's 29, but Facundo Campazzo, major rotation changes to Denver. We saw Monte Morris subbing for Gary Harris, and we saw PJ Dozier subbing for Michael Porter Jr. So they're kind of sliding those guys down to make room for Campazzo. And after the game, one was asked about Campazzo, about how hard he plays. He's like, yeah, we think he can do it for 72 games. So, I mean, he's going to get a role. And, I mean, I knocked Will Barton out of the 150. I mean, he's healthy, but he's missing games. So, I don't know. But they're going to be a lot of fun.
All right. Any other takeaways from Friday night, or should we get into Saturday?
Just Anthony Edwards looks bad, other than what we mentioned on Patrick Williams, too. So, that pretty much covers it. Oh, and Jalen
one
Smith
thing, just a note on a note on the rookies, that something that when I've listened to some people talking about win totals and such, like Hollinger, when he's plugging these guys into his models, he's just using an average for where those guys were drafted, like the type of production that they would normally get from, say, a number 1 overall pick or number 2. And it seems pretty clear, and maybe it'll change, but it seems like this is going to be, a draft class that is not going to produce any superstars, or I don't know. I hesitate to say that because stuff like, Giannis was picked 13th or whatever. And guys come out of nowhere, but not your typical draft class. And we knew that, but I think it's already starting to drive home a little bit when we're seeing these guys play basketball.
I thought Devin Vassell looked pretty good too. So that's another guy and then I mentioned Jalen Smith played a lot of the four. I think almost straight four. Guys are missing. Most guys are out, but noteworthy.
All right, let's move on to Saturday. What were the main takeaways on Saturday?
Pacers, I think. They shot 44 threes, and Brogdon said, like, that's a thing now. So that's great. I mean, threes, highly assisted, obviously more scoring. Brogdon's a really good shooter from three. So I thought he was a winner from that. I thought Sabonis looked great. I thought Turner looked comfortable. He's a good three-point shooter. So those three guys look like they're going to be in pretty good spots.
Do you guys think Turner's going to get moved this year? I mean, there's just been so much talk about him getting traded. And I guess the reports were that the Celtics wouldn't do the sign and trade to get him back, which seems really odd to me. I don't know what they were thinking there. They absolutely should have gotten him opposed to getting like basically nothing. I guess they have a big trade exception.
Big trade exception, right?
So
basically they're deferring that decision till a little bit later, and they thought that they could get more out of, Tristan Thompson as a roster fit and different things. I personally think that's a mistake, but I mean, Danny Ainge is very, very good at his job generally, and the Boston front office has been pretty solid, for many years at making people look bad in terms of the things that they've done, trading down to pass on Fultz to get Tatum and different things like that. They've generally hit on things. But if Turner gets moved, man, if he lands in the right spot, I think he could just be an absolute monster from a category fantasy-based perspective, because he gets the threes, he gets the blocks, he gets the steals. And I said this, in the bubble season, but at the very end of that playoff series in Miami, I thought he started to play the way that I've always hoped he would play from a physicality standpoint, because he's not a small dude, but he often has played as a smaller dude. And when he's been playing the four alongside Sabonis, that's kind of allowed him to do that. But when Sabonis was out towards the end of that playoff series, he started to body people down low, and he's got a great shot. He's got a pretty decent arsenal down there. He's one of those guys that if I was a weaker team that had an asset that I could move and was kind of shifting into a developmental phase, I know Turner makes good money, but he's still pretty young, and he's a guy that I would really like to be buying stock on in terms of his upside.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just the circles that we're in where everybody loves him. I mean, because clearly the NBA doesn't like him as much as some of the people I'm listening to, like you and Duncan and such. I don't know, man. I think things might go south for Indy this year, and I think there's a really good chance that Turner gets traded at some point. And I really hope he does, because I'd like to see him somewhere else. So, I don't know if that changes a whole lot. I mean, Drew, it sounds like you think if he gets traded, it could help his value. So maybe bump him up a little bit. But
we're pretty high on him in general from the projection standpoint. And so I feel pretty comfortable about where we've got him on the seasonal stuff relative to where he'll go in drafts. But I do think there's a little bit of hidden upside if that did happen. I think Indiana is going to be in a position. It's just hard to like have a bad year in the East, when you're like, there's not a lot of teams that are really challenging you to take spots. So I think he's very likely to stay put is my guess. I think if they were looking at moving pieces, I think Oladipo would be a stronger priority, honestly, than Turner for them.
Yeah, I mean,
he wasn't really comfortable. I was going to say he wasn't really comfortable earlier in the year, but his last like 10 or 8 games, even when Sabonis was there, he was playing great. So I think he was like 3.5 blocks. Like he was really balling. I'll just go into the next one. I thought John Morant looked really good. He had a really good scoring game and 0 mid-range shots, all paint, all threes, looking to pass. He led the seeding games in potential assists. So super dark horse for assists. I think so, maybe. So I'm pretty sold on Morant. You and I were talking about him in projections a little bit too. Do you think you're going to come up on him a little bit?
It's really tough. It's hard to make the math work for Ja in a way that, especially in category-based leagues, where in category-based leagues, turnovers, threes, and field goal are just really, really important. And so like how much better can he improve the field goal percentage is really the big thing for him in terms of projecting him going forward. And then how many more minutes will they let him run? Like that's the other big thing. Most of last year he was stuck around 30. I've got him at 32.5. So I'm projecting an increased opportunity set there. But if he can get into that 33, 34 range, then it's a little bit bigger on the whole. I like Ja's game a lot. There were some interesting quotes from the coaching staff about him working on his jumper kind of in the off season. And they basically said, like, with him taking more threes and working on the jumper, the quotes were something along the lines of, like, this isn't going to be a thing that you see the results immediately and it happens kind of overnight. So we just got to get him to be, like, comfortable in the process of continuing to just attack this, and then know over time, and they said something like, this isn't a 1-year project. This is like a 2-3 year thing. And that to me was like a little bit of pause in terms of the shooting stuff. Just because if he is taking more threes and he is taking only paint and mid-range stuff, the field goal percentage could suffer just as he adapts and he's working to grow his game for the long term, which I think is all important stuff, but just thinking in the context of this year and the projection for this year.
And I'll just add, he's fantastic off ball for point guard. So I think that'll help him in field goal percentage too.
Speaking of young players supposedly improving their shots, what's the story on Markelle Fultz? Because I've heard chirping that he worked on a shot. It seems to me that they always say this in the off season. And then I heard some people saying it looked exactly the same. Gallagher, is there any hope with Markelle Fultz ever learning how to shoot?
I don't think so. Like, to be great, but he still takes so long to get the ball up. But he's a little cleaner on release, I thought. So maybe it helps him a little bit, but like, he's not going to be great. So, but that said, his role is great. I mean, he's going to be really on ball a lot. He's getting more screens so far from what I've seen compared to before. And we saw last year they kind of upped his minutes a little bit. So yeah, point guards, if you're missing out, I could see him taking a big step forward. And this guy's had he said, like, I finally had a healthy offseason. So there's no reason to think he's not going to take a big step forward this year.
You want to talk about shooting stuff, though? Giannis has changed his free throw routine a little bit. It went 6 for 7 in the line in the first game. And the only reason I bring it up is because this is really the only, like, detriment to Giannis in fantasy, right? Is the fact that the free throw shooting is the thing that drags him down from a category-based standpoint. And if he can get back to shooting in the 70s, it's a big difference because you get all that other production with a free throw percentage that isn't killing you. It's not helping you at that level. But I saw some news in some articles kind of around, or some tweets kind of around the idea that, he's really tried to improve the motion. And remember, for the first, like, 5-6 years of this guy's career, he was 72 to 76. And then last year he just fell to 63 out of nowhere. And so if he can get back to, 75, 76, 77, I think it's a big difference from a category-based league. And yes, there are concerns that he might have games that they rest because they're a really good team and different things down the stretch. But in terms of the guys up top, I mean, I would argue that he's maybe comes with the least amount of concerns, because you have all the same concerns with Anthony Davis that you'd have with Giannis. You have concerns with Harden just in terms of, like, not knowing when he's going to play, where he's going to play, what the situation is going to be. And so the big concern with Giannis is just the statistical weaknesses on the free throw. And so I think that's something to pay attention to during the preseason to see if that looks like it's substantially improved.
And I'll add, you could kind of rationalize that poor shooting year last year, because he said, quote, obviously, like a while ago, he had changed his shot. So maybe that
probably changed it to try to extend his range. Like, and this is like just trying to figure out what is the most impactful thing for him to be able to do.
So it could explain a little bit.
That's pretty intriguing. I hadn't caught wind of that, so I'm interested to check that out. But yeah, I mean, if he could get back into the 70s, he's a total smash. So that's exciting. And maybe at some point he'll start hitting threes. I don't know. I don't know if I see it, but there's always a little bit more upside with a guy that's already unbelievably good.
He was at 1.4 threes per game last year. That's not hurting you.
No,
threes.
It's not.
But it does impact the shooting in terms of his impact on categories and whatnot. Because last year his shooting dropped to 55% from the field after being at a high of 57.8 the year before.
And I actually tracked his jumper EFG on a tweet a while ago. It's gone up every single year since 2015-16. And he's at 42% EFG last year. So that's pretty good. It's not
All
great,
right,
but for him, it's good.
Let's tackle a few of these changes in the change log. I mean, we've already hit on some of the guys that have moved, but one interesting one I wanted to hear you talk about, Gallagher, is moving Jamal Murray up a tier at the point guard position.
Yeah, just the offense. I think Denver's offense is going to be just a fantasy factory. And it really comes down to what he did in the bubble. Just that assisted total alpha rolls, hard shots. When the defense is on him hard, I think he could take a pretty big leap. And he just doesn't miss games. Double hernia surgery as a rookie, played in every game. So, yeah, I really like his floor and I like his ceiling. So it's a guy I'm definitely attracted to in like the third round.
Let's talk a little bit about the Rockets guys, John Wall and Boogie in particular. And it continues to look like Harden is probably not going to be there for that much longer. I don't know. I mean, Houston's saying that they're going to stand firm and wait, but he keeps saying there was another Woj report this morning saying that he wants out of Houston. So I think it's going to happen at some point. It's really just a matter of when. And so, you've got John Wall and Boogie who look pretty good, although I'd say maybe use a little bit of caution with John Wall because it's not right now that we're worried about. It's good that he looks pretty athletic and fast out there, but it's more that he's going to miss games. He could get hurt, et cetera, et cetera. But just bring us up to speed on your thoughts on the Houston situation, Gallagher.
Yeah, I'm pretty sold on Cousins. And I was pretty sold coming in. He's had a lot of time off. He looks really thin, looks really in shape. He's moving around really well. And he's going to guard the fives, even when Christian Wood's out there. So Wood missing games, I don't think really affects him much because he's not going to play 30 minutes anyways. And he's a usage monster. Top five his last three seasons, he was fully healthy. So I think he can get big shots there. And just multi-cat studs. He passes really well. So I'm really sold on Cousins. It's late roundish, Not going to be late round anymore, though. I'll say that. He's going to probably go like 80. I think it's still fine.
As we're speaking, I'm dropping Harden's games further. He's got such a big category advantage on all the other dudes in terms of like when he plays, he's clearly the number one guy, but I don't know. So I've dropped him to 60 games at this point, which he doesn't miss games, but it's just like trying to bake in some of this, like if this carries on into the season, I don't know if he'll start the season playing.
I mean, he's too valuable to put on the court if you're trying to trade him, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm hesitant here on how to handle this situation, but he's a guy that if you project him similar games to everybody else at the top, he's the clear number one, and I don't feel like he should be the clear number one based on this uncertainty on the news situation.
Yep.
Well, totally. And if you knew he was going to be on, say, Brooklyn for game one of the season, which doesn't, we're running out of time here, but let's just say that were the case. Is he still the number one then with playing with KD and Kyrie?
All of them would take a little bit of a hit.
Yeah.
I honestly think I'd still take game one. If I knew he was going to be good to go game one. I mean, the thing there is you'd also know that if you knew he was going to be good to go game one, you get the games projection back up. You might lose some on the rates and stuff, but you'll also get those games where Kyrie or KD sit where it's going to be classic Harden. And the thing about Brooklyn is I think their roster is actually kind of deep now, but if they traded for Harden, that all that depth is gone and nobody soaks up minutes and rates quite like James Harden. I think the bigger concern honestly would be if he went to Philadelphia, depending on what they had to trade to get him. But I think he'd be if you just knew he was going to play the games, I think he'd be clear number one. And there was a big concern about how Westbrook
trade for him.
Yeah, I don't think they go to Ben Simmons though. That's the thing.
I wouldn't trade Ben Simmons for him at this point. I think you just got to see what you got. And, they clearly have a different approach now in Philly. So I'd want to see that in action before I made any big changes. And I mean, that's what people are saying, that, how valuable is Harden really? Because the teams that he would be the best on maybe don't have the packages. And he's saying there's only a few teams he wants to go to. And he's getting up there in age and people don't really like playing with him, et cetera, et cetera. That being said, he's still an incredibly good basketball player. I don't know. I'm pretty interested to see how this plays out. All right. Gallagher, you got any other main takeaways? I mean, of course, everyone can go to establishedrun.com and check out your change log where you can see all the details of all the changes you made, and you're updating the 150 probably multiple times a day, just making tweaks and whatnot. So we're staying on top of everything, but any other main points you want to convey from the weekend's play?
Yeah, we mentioned Pacers, but we didn't really mention TJ Warren plantar fascia issue, which he had in August. Was able to return for the Miami series, but certainly noteworthy. I thought DeJuan Wright is really encouraging. Heavy overlap with Killian Hayes, which is great. You want to see guys who are in position battles get a lot of minutes with the known starter. So I thought DeJuan Wright came out as a winner to me over the weekend. Drew had talked about RJ Barrett's usage. It's going to be really, really high. So, take him late. Hope he's not trash and just roll with it.
They were running a lot of stuff for Barrett where Peyton basically brings the ball up and then coming off of a screen, Barrett gets into kind of a pick and roll type situation. He was running a lot of pick and roll with Noel, not very effectively, but he was running it, and there are a lot of opportunities there. So I think they're definitely going to have the ball in RJ Barrett's hands quite a bit. And Noel starting versus Mitch Robinson, we've continued to pull back on Mitch Robinson's minutes a little bit. I still think he can be super, super impactful in a limited role, but I think, one of the things to note is how impactful Noel has been in categorical-based scoring because of his steals and blocks capabilities in 18-minute roles in the past. And he doesn't turn the ball over. He doesn't really hurt you anywhere. So he's a guy that, in leagues where you have the ability to move guys in and out on a daily basis, I think he's actually quite valuable and probably a little bit underrated in terms of what his role could be, even though I don't think he can get to like a 25-minute role. I just think he's very effective in his limited minutes.
Totally agree.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we are going to start grinding the preseason slate for you. Drew and Mike have already started grinding it. I'm going to get up to speed. We're going to have content for you later today. So make sure you are a sub of any form for our NBA packages, draft kit, in season, weekly, monthly, whatever. You will have access to the preseason content tonight. And the show will be at what time, Drew?
So I thought it was going to be 4 to 5, but it's going to be 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern, just because we're going to do the shows basically so that they end an hour before lock is kind of the feedback we got during the bubble season, that a half hour before lock was a little bit too close for everybody to digest that information. So lock is at 7 tonight. They're not including the Indiana-Cleveland game on either site. So we will go forward with a 5 to 6 show tonight. And then I think Wednesday will be 5:30 to 6:30 because it's a 7:30 lock. And then I think it's back to a 7 o'clock lock on Thursday, which would be a 5 to 6 show.
Fantastic. And we'll be keeping you updated with all of the developments in the preseason and how they impact your season long stuff and probably DFS takeaways as well. And then the season starts next Tuesday. So we are getting into the full swing here. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you later tonight.